We've been waiting ages to find out, but we finally know the first run of Steam Decks is dropping on February 25th, with further cycles still to be confirmed sometime further down the line. But with that being the case, I want to talk about the Steam Deck Verified program, which is basically a verification program to indicate if a game is going to play well on the Steam Deck. Right now, there are 4 categories. We have Verified, which is basically a game that plays well or plays perfectly on the Steam Deck. We have Playable. This is a game that you can play, but maybe out of the box doesn't work perfectly. Maybe the resolution is set wrong. Maybe the graphical settings are too intensive for the Steam Deck. Maybe it doesn't select the controller input by default, and the face buttons don't work exactly like they should be. But you can actually get the game working. Unsupported is a game that just will not work. Generally, this is going to be games that are like VR games or have anti-cheat or some other reason why the game just will not function. And then Unknown. These are games that just have not been tested. And up until recently, the way they were testing games was based on an automated queue. This was sorted by some heuristics like playtime and interest amongst people who reserved a Steam Deck. The problem with this, though, is there is a lot of developers, especially indie developers, who know right now their game works on the Steam Deck and want everyone else to know, hey, day one, you can play this game. So they've decided to open up manual submission amongst select partners at this stage to allow interested developers to submit their own test results. But this is where something interesting happens. According to Valve's own announcements, they say, in preparation for the upcoming Steam Deck release, we've spent the last several months testing thousands of titles in the Steam back catalog for our Deck Verified program. Now, Valve themselves have not released a full list of every single verified and every single playable game that they've actually come across. But SteamDB has a list of all the information currently accessible on Steam. And so far, there are 90 verified games, 77 playable games, and 28 unsupported. Now, firstly, I want to say, anyone who's complaining about 167 games that are working has never seen a console launch, because there's never been a single console launch in history that's had that many games. But the other problem is, you don't even need to be in high school to work this one out. 90 plus 77 plus 28 does not add up to thousands. There is some marketing BS going on here. Now, when I was planning this yesterday, there was only 69 games on the verified list and 42 on the playable. Now, they are releasing the results in batches. There is no chance that those numbers were not selected because haha funny meme numbers. I am telling you right now, judging by their own announcement here, let's say they have 1,000 games they have tested. There is at least another 800 results they have not released. And do you know how I know this? Because I know there are really popular games that are not on this list yet, and there are games that they've literally demoed on the system which aren't on the list either. For example, in the Linus Tech Tips video that happened a few months back, they were playing Doom. No Doom 2016, no Doom Eternal. Both those games work perfectly on the Steam Deck. Other really popular games like Skull, for example, are not on the list. Dead Cells was added. That wasn't there yesterday. Other games that I know they know actually work, like the Half-Life games, they are literally redoing the Half-Life 2 UI to make it more friendly on the Steam Deck, also not on this list. The entire Witcher franchise isn't on the list yet. Witcher 3 is. I know the first 2 games also work perfectly as well, and there are countless other games that should already be here. Even if we're just talking about unsupported games, let's see. Apex Legends, PUBG, 2 of the most popular games on Steam, when they are supposedly ordering by interest, somehow haven't been tested. Nope, definitely nothing weird going on there. I genuinely have no idea how none of the game's journalists managed to put 2 and 2 together. It's so obvious, they are literally telling you numbers, and the numbers don't line up. And as someone who plays Linux games, plays games on Linux, whatever you want to say, if you're going by popular games, you will struggle to find thousands of games that are not at least playable. Now, obviously, it takes time to verify and corroborate this testing information, but you are not convincing me that if they have tested thousands of games over the past couple of months, they don't have hundreds upon hundreds of results they just aren't releasing yet. However, I don't think a lot of those games will end up being marked as verified. I think most of them will be playable, because while the Steam Deck verified criteria isn't super strict, it does have some things that will trip up quite a few games, even if the game is otherwise completely playable. First one is controller support, and I guarantee this is what's going to trip up most games. There are so many PC games out there, especially older ones, designed entirely around keyboard and mouse, or maybe genres which just don't work properly on a controller, like, say, an RTS, which will never be marked as a verified game. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. If you want to plug in like a keyboard and mouse, or plug it into a monitor and use it as a PC, you can still play the game. So if I was controlling the verification, I would probably mark this game as playable and just say it doesn't have controller support, because it will actually indicate which categories it actually fails on. Controller glyphs I can't see being an issue. Most games designed around a controller are designed around Xbox 360, Xbox One, Xbox One X buttons. That's what's being used on a Steam Deck, and it's gonna be fine. There is a very small number of obscure JRPGs that were only ever released on PlayStation, then made their way to PC, and use the PlayStation prompts, but outside of those, I don't see games failing on this. Text input is one I'm not entirely sure about, because I'm not sure about the back end for a lot of these games. Obviously, older titles that are around prior to the API existing are obviously going to have problems, but I don't know how popular using this API is for modern games. But granted, a lot of games out there don't have a way to actually input text. With the resolution support, they recommended 1280 by 800, the native resolution of the Steam Deck, but 1280 by 720 is also going to be accepted. Now, I know there's a lot of games out there that only have 16 by 9 resolutions available, so this one may be missing in a lot of titles, but by accepting this, most things aren't going to be a problem. If the game is released in the past, when did the Xbox 360 and PS3 come out? Like 10, 15, 15 years ago or something like that, it's going to have 720p. Some games will definitely be tripped up by this one, default configuration. The game must ship with a default configuration on deck that results in a playable frame rate. I have played too many games that when you boot them up, they default to ultra settings. That will not be playable on a Steam Deck unless the game is like maybe 5, 7 years old, or it's an indie game. It won't be unplayable, but it will definitely not be verified if that is the case. As for text legibility, I don't entirely agree with this one, not because I think it's too strict, but because I think it's not strict enough. So, the interface text must be readable at a distance of 30 centimeters, and the text at a minimum must be 9 pixels high. 9 pixels on a 6-7 inch screen at 30 centimeters, for a lot of people is going to be completely unreadable. I would have thought you'd want it to be much higher than that. 12 is their recommended. I'd probably want to go like 15 or 18 maybe, but maybe that's taking up way too much space and the math isn't playing out properly in my head. I'm sure the Valve has tested this and worked out a number that makes sense, but it still seems a little bit too small. I'm not really worried about any games failing that, except for random indie titles where they put absolutely no thought into their UI. As for no device compatibility warnings, unless there's something specific about the Steam Deck hardware or the Steam Deck version of Linux, this isn't going to show up. I can't think of a single time that I've had something like this show up while playing a game on Linux, except if the game has crashed. And the last thing is launchers. Almost every single game with a launcher is going to fail this because it requires full navigability with a controller. And outside of the Feral launcher, I don't know of a single launcher that actually has that. So with all that in mind, look at your Steam list and think about what games you know are popular and you know they have tested and you know are on this list, but they just have not released results. And you'll see exactly what I'm saying. They have a big list that I am convinced they're holding it back because they want to release it like just before the Steam Deck launches, right? This is like 200 IQ marketing. What you do is you make everyone think that, oh, the Steam Deck's gonna have like a really rough launch. You release this list at launch with like 5,000, 10,000 titles that work, and then all of a sudden, all of the media is talking about you. Everybody in the second cycle to pre-order instantly gets super excited, wants to pre-order it right now, and you make tons of money. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. Do I think Valve is a company that would do that? Yes, they like money. They're a company. If I am wrong, though, and they haven't actually tested thousands of games, where did this thousands number actually come from? Well, someone in marketing who wrote this announcement didn't talk to the dev team or the testing team or whoever is testing the games, and they basically just screwed up. Now people like me are making videos on the internet, basically giving them free marketing, talking about how they're going to release a massive list with all of their supported games. I think that's far less likely, though. I think holding it off for marketing is a bit more of a possibility. Also, on a side note, not related to the verified program, the compositor being used on the Steam Deck, which is called GameScope, now has better support for AMD FSR. GameScope allows you to have like virtual screen resolutions, allowing you to actually push FSR into the state you actually want it to be in, because when you're forcing FSR, it's a little bit jank to actually get working. So let me know down below, do you think this idea makes any sense, or maybe it's just absolute nonsense and I should stop reading things on the internet? I would love to know. So if you like this video, I'm going to go and like the video, and if you really like the video and you want to become one of these people over here, go check out my Patreon subscribers only bearer pay linked in the description down below. I've got a podcast where I'm probably going to talk about this topic here, and I've got a gaming channel where, look, it's a gaming channel, I'm probably going to talk about it as well. That's going to be it for me, so I'm out.